Hey all, Daniel here. We have a great new way for you to reach out to us here at We Watch TV. If you take a look down in the show notes of the podcast, you'll notice a link that says text us a question or comment. The link will open the messaging app on your phone, and from there you can send a text message to us, your favorite variety TV podcast hosts. So if we say something you like or don't like about your favorite show, click that link and educate us on your opinion. We love hearing them, even if they're wrong, and we will make sure to shout you out on our next episode or answer your burning questions. So make sure and check that out down in the show notes. And now, enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel, she is Hope. This is episode 69.
Nice.
And it is Happy Memorial Day weekend, or well, I guess it has passed, but
it is Happy Memorial Day
It is
weekend.
Happy Memorial Day weekend.
It's always nice to have a day off.
It is. It's very nice to have a day off. We were recording on Monday, which, is not unusual for us, but in the middle of the day because we didn't have work today.
And Monday is the day before Tuesday.
That's true. Yeah.
I always feel like Memorial Day is like the unofficial start to summer. Like,
yeah, I
agree. Basically is. Even though, what is summer? Unless you're like a teacher or you're like a student, does summer even mean anything to you other than super stupid hot weather?
Yeah, it's hot, and I have to run my air conditioner, or in the case of my basement office, my fan, because the air kind of does okay down there, but it gets a little sticky in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think that when I was younger, I liked summer a lot more because obviously I had the summer off. And a lot of my friends that are teachers that have summer off, they're still like all about that summer life. And now I can definitely say that fall is 100% my favorite season.
I agree.
Like, I've always liked fall, but now like that, every season I'm doing those adult things.
Yeah, nothing's changing really.
And responsibilities. I feel like those, I call them the Burr months. So like September, October, November, December are like the best months of the year, even though last year we were marathon training. So that kind of made the Burr months a little more difficult.
That was a bit of a thorn in the side, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it was tough because every 2 weeks we were going out and running stupid amount of miles and spending the next 2 weeks recovering from said miles. And it was, yeah.
And I like going on like summer vacation is really nice. And it is nice to have warm weather when we're not sweating outside in it. But I would say if I were to rank the seasons, I would probably put summer in like honestly, I would say if it was just seasons based on weather, it would take my 3 slot. But because my spring has been so stupid busy lately, I would probably, and I feel like it was always busy, like growing up. Like you and I both did track. There's always a busy time of year. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and shift it into my second spot. Winter's last for me. Like I know Christmas is in winter, but it still counts as like its own thing on the back end of fall.
Yeah.
Because after December, I'm just done with winter.
It's strange because I would have disagreed with, I would have probably put winter second most of my life. But as I've gotten older, winter has become more of a, it used to be like, oh man, the chance of a snow day was really exciting in the winter. And now it's just like, I do not care if it ever snows ever, because it's more of an inconvenience than it is a fun thing. And it's cold. And I know, how cold it gets down in my office. And talking about my office temperature waves, it gets like almost, I think I clocked it at like 49 one morning when I walked down there.
I like usually the first kind of like snow of the season. I still get that excitement. But I feel like it never snows like when I would want it to snow, like around the holidays. Like I think we had one year where we actually had a white Christmas, but I always see those Hallmark movies that are like set in like Ohio towns. Unless you're like in probably like the Cleveland area, you're not getting the bulk of your snow in December. You're getting it January, February.
Yes.
But no snow now just hot.
Now it's just
stupid hot. Stupid
hot for the next couple months. So, speaking of stupid hot things, if you've been listening to the podcast for the last couple episodes, then you know that we have a new system for you to reach out to us and send us a text message. Let us know your thoughts. We've been getting them. We're really excited every time we get one. We jump up and down and scream.
We really are. Like serotonin.
And we like seeing it. And so we just wanted to quickly go through the ones that we got from after last week's episode. And thank you guys for sending them in and keep them coming. So first up, we've got our friend from South Carolina who has a history of dissing Taylor Swift, but this one is not Taylor Swift related.
But the Tortured Post Department is not a dud. It's a great album.
So to the good people of We Watch TV podcast, I have the best suggestion for you. Watch Mrs. Davis on Peacock, and I can promise you 4 things will happen. He says, don't look up spoilers, which, we won't. I know we have discussed watching this show before.
Multiple times.
Multiple times. We don't have Peacock at the moment. I read this list. I'm interested now. Okay, number 1 item on the list, Daniel will want a new pair of shoes. Listen, I'm never going to turn away a new pair of shoes. So if there's anything making me want more new shoes, that's like the one clothing item in my life that I'm kind of like particular about and actually like fancy. Like I'll wear the same pair of jeans or flannel around for weeks, months without, doing anything with it. But I do like a new pair of shoes. 2, you will both be startled and jump out of your seats. We'll see about that. Hope is an absolute guarantee. She's a mark for that stuff, but I don't know. We'll see about me. 3, you will contemplate the meaning of life and your purpose. I mean, I do this every day, but okay. And number 4, you will want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
You always want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
I mean, it helps that Buffalo Wild Wings is like one of the 2 restaurants we've got in the town. All 4 will happen. You won't know when or why until it happens, but all 4 happens, I promise you. Well, I promise you that at some point here later in the summer, once the June rush kind of rushes down a little bit, we'll get over to Mrs. Davis and watch it. I think there's a couple things on Peacock I'd like to watch.
Well, we know the Olympics are coming, the Paris Olympics, and there's a lot of content that you don't get to see on like the regular NBC broadcasts that are on Peacock. So we'll probably get Peacock back around the Olympics time. And then we can try to fit in watching this show. And Ted.
Yeah, Ted got renewed. I don't think it'll be for a while, but yeah, Ted got renewed. So we'll watch it then. I completely forgot there was an Olympics this summer.
What?
And I know, and now that you've said it, I realize you've talked to me about it multiple times. This happens all the time, folks. But until you just said that, I was like, you said it, and my first thought was, there's not an Olympics this year.
I literally
and then I was like, wait a second, yes, there is.
When this comment came through, I was like, oh, well, we'll be getting Peacock back.
I know, I remember all of it now.
We watched the Marathon Olympic trials together.
Oh, we did, didn't we?
Because
what was the other comment?
Wow, it must be really hot at this time of day. And then I was like, they're not out there for as long as we were in our marathon. These people are running it in like a little over 2 hours.
But it was in Orlando.
It was in Orlando.
Which is where we did our marathon.
Yes.
Not the same course.
They weren't running through the Disney parks.
All right. What is our second comment that we got in today?
All right. John Paw, an OG We Watch TV podcast listener, by the way, from Foul Nation's Toilet Bowl Club, says, question, what's the best series that you ended up hate watching? Mine was Dexter. And then he also says, suggestion, check out the Korean challenge show Physical 100 on Netflix. Okay, that's a lot to take in. Dexter, we tried to watch Dexter and just could never get into it. It's like the serial killer one, right?
I'm familiar with the story.
We watched like the first season, I think.
Is the question, I'm trying to interpret the question. Is he asking us what's the best thing we started hate watching and ended up liking? Or
I would interpret it, what's the best series that you ended up hate watching? So I feel like it could be interpreted as 2 things. Either a show started off really good, but you were hate watching it by the end. How I Met Your Mother, or just a show that you hate watch but don't like, but you don't totally hate it, but you hate watch it.
Okay, I can answer both of those questions.
I can answer both of those questions as well. So the first one, I would have a couple of things for that. Like, let's see, obviously, How I Met Your Mother got really bad towards the end, and then the payoff wasn't even good, and I can never watch another rerun ever again because it was so absolutely horrible. But it was good at one point before they ruined everything and decided that instead of the whole premise where I wasn't getting the cookie cutter plot, they were like, you know what, we're going to give you the cookie cutter plot, and they wasted my time and made me suffer through those last couple seasons. So that would be one of those. For a while, it was like I found myself hate watching Grey's Anatomy before I quit that one. We're trying to get back into Grey's, though. We'll see. But if it's coming just like a show that I like, but I still don't really like, but I hate watch, that would absolutely be And Just Like That. which you have seen some episodes of.
Yeah.
That is the spinoff of the Sex and the City series. They are filming the upcoming third season right now. And this question couldn't have come at a more perfect time because the good people of Reddit have posted some scenes of them filming of Aiden screaming at Carrie's apartment on the road again. What's new? So, yeah. And just like that, am I entertained by it? Sure. Do I like the choices they've made? No. Am I going to see you next week? HBO Max or Max, whatever we call it now. Yes. So if depending on what he meant by that question, I feel like I answered it in both ways. And if we are interpreting this question wrong, ask us again, and then we'll give you another answer. You go.
Okay. I've got for things that started off well and I just was hate watching by the end. And this, I'm going to put an asterisk next to this one because this one really was good up until the very end. But Game of Thrones.
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew, yeah. I knew. So I have a second one because I think that one may almost be disqualified because we weren't really hating Game of Thrones until those last 2 seasons, and it really, really wasn't until the last season that it was bad.
That's what I was saying. You were asking me, what do we think this question means? So that would answer if we thought it meant the one method, or the second method would be just something like
and I have a pure hate watch answer, but I feel like Game of Thrones was good enough, long enough that it's hard to be that first one. So I'll say Lucifer. We started watching that, and then by the end, it was
we haven't even finished it.
Yeah, we didn't even finish it. That's how bad.
No need because they all show up on suits.
Yeah. So if it's truly just something I watch and hate watch the whole time, it's Rings of Power.
And that's the Amazon
Lord of the Rings show. I watched it. I started watching it 2 months after it came out because I wanted to see what people thought of it, and everybody hated it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to waste my time with it. And I just had to. Because of how much of a Lord of the Rings fan I am. I had to watch it. It's awful, and I can't wait for season 2 so I can see how awful that is.
Ooh, I have another answer. If we did interpret it the first way of the question, Riverdale. I used to love Riverdale. And then it fell off. It got bad. That could be a whole other question. What shows fell off? Because there'd be a lot of them.
Yeah. So anyways, we really appreciate you guys sending us those questions in. We encourage anybody to send them in more, whether it's a comment off of this episode or whether you just got some random question you want to ask us or something to get us debate. We're more than happy to have these conversations about the topics that you bring to our attention.
And hey, clarify on that question if we answered it correctly either way, or do you really want to know,
or do we need reading comprehension classes?
Because I feel like there are a lot of shows that you could talk about that you started off liking and that were hate watching by the end, but then like we said, there's other shows that you just hate watch.
I don't think we do that. I think when a show gets too much for us, we just quit.
Yeah,
I don't think we don't feel some sunk fallacy that we have to just keep watching it because we've watched so much of it. The Walking Dead is a perfect example. Yeah, you're reading my mind over here. I pieced out, you pieced out not long after me. We just couldn't, it's just for whatever reason, we couldn't do it anymore.
I still haven't finished Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You pieced out of that before I did, and then I pieced out.
Yeah, and so we're not necessarily guilty of hate watching anything to the end, even though we're not enjoying it. When we stop enjoying it, it just stops.
We're the type of people, we really like to enjoy ourselves when we watch TV. We like to relax, and I don't want it to feel like work.
Yes.
If I'm watching a show.
That honestly, the end of the OC rewatch
got a little painful
because we committed ourselves to watching it, but it was not the same show by the end, and it got really hard to sit through. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for the questions and the suggestion. Like I said, we are going to get. I always wanted to see Mrs. Davis. Do we know if season 2 is coming? Let us know if we think a season 2 is coming. But that's not a disqualifier. I'm more than happy to watch one really good season of TV if it's really, really good. So, all right. So what is up first on the agenda today? I'm looking at my notes. I just had to ask you off recording. What in the world does Bridgerton carriage scene times 50 mean?
It just means that when you split a season, and I only get 4 episodes, I'm going to not only watch that season a 4th time. I think I've watched it 4 times now. Specifically episode 4, specifically the last 15 minutes, about 50 times at this point. And I need more Bridgerton, which thankfully I don't have to wait too long. But they've had some screenshots and some stills of the upcoming season, and I'm very excited. But yeah, this is why they should never split seasons, because it's just I just like, again, let's watch it again.
They split the season, and now for the second podcast episode in a row, you're talking about it.
I think I'll be talking about the Bridgerton carriage scene forever.
Yeah, they've got you exactly where they want you. They've given you just enough to get you excited and hype, but they didn't give it all of it, so you're gonna have to come back.
Oh, and that reminds me, last week we couldn't remember one of the other shows that had the 2-part treatment, Stranger Things. They did that with Stranger Things.
I maintain my comment. It was, they haven't split a show I really care about at all.
You used to love Stranger Things. That might fall in your category.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Whereas
we
I think
are
Stranger
still,
Things
yes.
is great.
Actually, yes, to go back to our previous conversation, I really enjoyed Stranger Things at the beginning, but I will be hate watching it here at the end.
Why? You don't love Steve Harrington?
All right. The episodes are too long.
I like them long.
They are telling the same story every season.
That's another one of my complaints about Bridgerton. The episodes are too short.
Every season is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
No character growth.
Excuse me, no character growth? Steve Harrington.
Okay, that's the only one.
Steve Harrington. Even Hopper's had character growth too. So has Joyce.
I'm no longer entertained.
Steve Harrington is a character that I can think of that has had some of the best character growth out of all the characters of all the shows. You agreed with me when we talked about this, how Steve has had the best character.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that, but it's just everybody else is just like whatever. And also, it used to be kind of fun and lighthearted, and it's really gotten dark in a way that I don't appreciate.
Well, they have some dark stuff going on.
And I'm not looking forward to it, but I will sit here and watch it with you.
And yes, you will sit here. I mean, I don't think we're getting the new season to 2027 anyway?
Yeah, probably not.
That's my biggest complaint, is the glacial pace that they film this. Like, Millie Bobby Brown is a married woman, and she's going to have to be playing like a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Unless they do a time jump. Anyway, speaking of time, X-Men 97.
Da-na-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na-na.
You never skip
the opening credits of X-Men 97.
Well, we decided to watch it on Disney Plus. I can tell you guys that Daniel has terrible hearing. Awful. Like, I have to repeat myself so much. I think some of it's selective, and I really do think he can't hear for crap. He's like getting that old man thing. So, like, I asked him the other night, I don't know, it was sometime early last week, we started watching it. I said, I'd seen a TikTok, and I was like, you know what? I've heard enough people say that's really good. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and see what it's like. So I was like, hey, do you want to watch X-Men 97? Crickets. And he's like, I'm going to go down to the basement. And I'm like, okay. I said, so you don't want to watch X-Men? And basically sprints down the hallway back to the living room. I was like, what? I said, I asked you if you wanted to watch X-Men 97. And then this is why I know when you say like, oh, I think something's fine, that I know that how you really get when you're excited. It doesn't happen often. Maybe when there's like a steak in front of him, like meat on a stick, like some type of like drink or beverage that he enjoys. And then the rare time where he gets really excited about the show is like we got to see like the rare glimpse of like gleeful, joyous Daniel.
I had been waiting to watch this.
And then you ran in here, decided that you were no longer going to go to the basement, and came in and we watched.
Yeah.
And we finished the season in about 4 days.
4 or 5 days. Yeah. And it was excellent. And it was everything from a nostalgic standpoint that I wanted as a 90s cartoon watcher of that show.
Yeah.
They kept the art style very intact, but they updated it and made it a little more fluid, and it looked really good, but it still felt very much like that X-Men
90s.
show from the 90s. And they had some of the voice actors from the 90s were even back, which was awesome. It's the best thing Marvel has done maybe since Endgame.
What? Okay, I'm going to disagree with you. Loki?
It's one of the best things that they have done since Endgame. Yeah. I love the X-Men. The X-Men are
Loki, the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie are all better than that.
I said one of. It's one of. It's up there. They're up there.
Said the.
Okay. It's up there. I think that it's excellent, and I think that they should be spending more time on doing stuff like this, but they won't because it doesn't make them any money.
Well, good news for you, though. I think they are doing a season 2.
They're doing a season 2 and a season 3, so they heard us.
I vaguely remember watching the cartoon. I was more of like a Tiny Toons, Ninja Turtles, Garfield. What was the show that was like, it would air like during it was like part of Garfield with like the farm animals. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember
Was
what
it
it
like
was called.
Green Acres or something?
I don't remember what it was called, but yeah, you're right. There was some like short
Like farm thing.
Yeah.
And then like I liked Heathcliff, which I think was like the Garfield ripoff, Doug, the Rugrats. So I watched X-Men a little bit. I remember Captain Planet, he's our hero, going to bring pollution down to zero, of the like superhero cartoons. But I have a love for those X-Men movies. And you know what? I haven't seen it in several years, and I'm not going to because I want the good memory to last in my brain. I didn't even hate The Last Stand that everybody dislikes. I like the First Class movies. I think the only one I haven't seen. Did we ever finally watch Apocalypse? I don't think we did.
We watched there was one after Apocalypse.
Okay, is that the one
That's
we haven't
the one
watched?
we haven't seen. That's one where they do Dark Phoenix.
Because everyone said it was so horrible.
Yeah.
But I'll need to see my own judgment on that, because sometimes where I'll think something's going to be like just like really bad and then I don't hate it as much. But Batman versus Superman was pretty bad.
Yeah.
When we finally watched
It
that.
was.
So we'll see. But I have an affinity for those. So I am very familiar with the X-Men. A lot of people always point to those, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies as like their first like superhero movies. And I think that's great. And I think because of those movies, that's why we have the Marvel Universe that we have today. But I think those X-Men movies really kind of got the ball rolling and don't get enough credit. So like I know all like the history with that, and I've considered myself an X-Men fan. I remember after I watched those movies, I like looked up like what random wild stuff would happen in the comics, and that is I know even more than you about some
Probably
of
you do.
deep dives I've done with what goes down in the comics. And I like the whole like and Harry Potter of it all, with like the school and everything that they're in and all hanging out. And yeah, I loved those movies. Like that's kind of the first time I feel like I really, even though Hugh Jackman is a song and dance man, I see him as like Wolverine.
Yeah, he is. That is his iconic character.
Anytime I see like the actress that played Jean Grey in those movies, I'm not talking about Sansa Stark. I'm talking about like,
right. Yeah, from the one from the 2000s.
I'll be like, oh, that's Jean Grey. Like she showed up in like I think The Blacklist or something, right? It was some show we were watching, somewhere. And I was like, what's Jean Grey doing on my TV? And then anytime like that actor, I think his name's like James Marsden, and he played Cyclops. Enchanted, the movie he's in, The Notebook. I'm like, what is Cyclops doing on here? So I really, really liked X-Men. But you know who's the best from X-Men? In every iteration I have seen.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Get ready, everybody.
People aren't, I don't understand it. Magneto, baby. The First Class. Who's your favorite? Magneto. Who's my favorite from the X-Men like trilogy from like that came out late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah.
Magneto. Who's my favorite from this cartoon show, X-Men 97? Magneto. What is wrong with people that they don't like Magneto? He's the best character, and Magneto was right, and he was right in this. I do not get it. Like, if these humans are just always pieces of crap, like everybody, they are. Like, we're all busting our butts in the X-Men to save these people, and they're doing anything they can to, like, we'll have a few humans that are like, we're going to work together, blah, 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 but end up making poor choices, like that Sally Jesse Raphael type character. Is she, like, in the regular X-Men from the 90s, the blonde hair?
I don't remember her specifically, but it's very possible.
I didn't like that woman until the end, when she realized, what did she say? Magneto was right. I just feel like if you were a mutant, you would probably side with him more. And I don't think he's even that bad of a person. He has trauma. Like, look what happened to his parents. And I do think he is very fond of Charles and cares for Charles, and that those two are the true love story of the entire X-Men franchise. It was basically like these two men like got divorced, and everyone else is like paying for the consequences.
Yeah.
I love Magneto. And there's some scenes, and that happened in this show, where I'm like, why is everybody mad at Magneto again? I'm like, he's reacting the way one would. You take their power out, Magneto, after what they tried to do to you guys. They tried to eviscerate all the mutants. They lied. They betrayed you. You take their power. That's right. Do you love Magneto? You told me you did.
I do love Magneto's character, and I love the depth of character that he is. Yes, I agree. He is better than Charles. He is a deeper, more enriched character than Charles is, looking at it purely from the academic sense of that stuff. I have a hard time. Magneto is the perfect anti-hero. He's not a villain, but he's an anti-hero, and his fault is whenever he gets pushed, and he gets pushed so far that he goes over that line.
And they had it coming.
Right.
I feel like okay, so we had this epiphany while we were watching X-Men 97 too, about the whole anti-hero thing. Let's see, who are my favorite characters? Magneto, Loki, Bucky, Anakin Skywalker. And I'm like, but why do I love Captain America Steve Rogers so much? Because he really doesn't fit. And you want to know why? Because he's pure of heart. Steve Rogers isn't a fake. He actually is a true, pure of heart man. And I don't see any phoniness from him. He's not like Mike Ross from Suits, who's like trying to be like blah, 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 but at the end of the day is still a narcissist. Like, that's why I like Steve Rogers and why he fits in, because I truly believe that he is a heart of gold, whereas I don't necessarily buy it with some of the others. Like, Thor is arrogant. He has an agenda as much as we like Thor. That's why I've always liked Loki. They're out there. So, yes, Magneto is the classic anti-hero. And yes, his flaw is that when he is pushed, he does go too far. But doesn't that make him a compelling character as well?
Oh, yeah. I never said he was not a compelling character. I think he is the most compelling character. It's just, when he does go too far, he shows why he's ultimately the anti-villain of the show.
It's just one of those things, like if you were a mutant and you were treated like that, especially if you had like a traumatic childhood and you add that he's had in, like, I just feel like you're probably going to side with him. Like, it's annoying to me. And I really bothered me how, spoiler alert, how towards the end, because like basically the show opens, and I guess this is how the cartoon ended, Charles Xavier's presumably dead and has left his bequeathed the X-Men, my X-Men, I like how they say that, to Magneto. And then stupid, boring, by the way, is Cyclops just boring in everything that Cyclops is in?
Yes.
Boring, lazy, like, just annoying. And he's just like, oh, why would they give, like, the X-Men to you, not to me? Well, because no one likes you, Cyclops. That's why. You're boring. Everyone liked Wolverine better, even though you're the supposed leader or whatever. Boring. And so Magneto's trying. He is actually trying. And then they got all screwed over by what happens on Genosha. I keep wanting to say Genovia. It's not the Princess Diaries. Genosha. And like, we think Magneto's presumably dead at one point too. Turns out Charles is just up in space booing it up with some Kree person. Have the Kree been introduced in the X-Men universe, or was this new?
The Kree were who those people were attacking. I don't remember the name of the people that...
The lady, the Empress,
the bird people,
whatever.
whatever.
Well, he's hooking up with some woman, and he's like, whatever, they're going to be fine. And then, like, obviously, when Magneto, the one woman, like, busts Magneto out at the end because we realize Magneto's still alive, and Magneto ultimately retaliates and wants to shut down what the villain guy's doing. Bastion, is that his name?
Bastion, yeah.
Like, and wanting to solve the problem, and then suddenly Magneto's the issue, and they're all mad, and Wolverine's stabbing Magneto. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, it is a wonder to me that Magneto even tries to maintain a friendship with these people.
Okay. Well, Hope has, for a show that she said was a silly little cartoon, sure has some strong thoughts
I've
on
always been passionate
the X-Men.
about
So
Magneto.
before we go too much into any other shows, I do want to have a couple questions for you. First, I think we need to address Beast.
Beast. Oh my gosh. So the only thing I remember about the cartoon show from the 90s was just Wolverine's outfit.
Yeah.
I really don't remember anything else from it. So my first look at Beast was Kelsey Grammer, played Dr. Fraser Crane, one of my favorite sitcoms of those movies, those X-Men movies. Perfect casting. Now that I've seen this, like, it's as if, like, they had to headhunt him, right?
Yeah,
I was like, we gotta get Kelsey Grammer to play this dude. So that was perfect. And I just do want to say that ultimately I would choose good over evil. But I think that if I was a mutant, maybe I would have a different point of view. And that Magneto, I think Magneto is right more often than not. And that Charles tries to make everybody get along. And that doesn't always work.
So you would be rogue in this situation, basically.
Yes.
In more ways than one?
Probably.
Where you follow him up into the point where you're like, oh, I really can't do this anymore, and you got to like a last minute get your butt out of there and help
Yeah.
the rest of the team.
So I think like when I watch X-Men and I think about what I get upset watching the mutants get hurt the way Magneto does. And I think he ultimately does it from a place of love and care. He and Charles just go about things completely differently. And I sometimes think that Magneto's methods would be more effective, but it would ultimately be most effective if they worked together.
Yes, if they could become together really, truly, I think that would be the most effective method. But I don't think, unless you're doing like an end-all, be-all X-Men where it's going to have a finite ending and this is it, you're never going to see that storyline, because ultimately Magneto being that antagonist is one of the things that makes X-Men more so compelling to me. Like, I'll say from a comic book standpoint, before this whole Marvel run that's been going on for the last 15 to 20 years or so, it was X-Men for me. That was the comic books that I really was into when it came to movies and TV shows. I was never a huge comic book fan. Like, I didn't read the comics necessarily, but I love the cartoon. I love the movies. Anything you do with X-Men, I'm there.
Was Magneto one of your favorites?
I certainly like Magneto. I'm a Wolverine. I'm generic man Wolverine fan.
Yes, but that's not always the only thing that you're a fan of. You liked Gambit a lot.
I'm not ashamed of it. I loved Gambit. Gambit's
Okay.
awesome.
I need to know. I need to obviously go back and watch some of the 90s stuff and read about Gambit in the comics, because my introductions to Gambit, one would have been in First Class, right? That's where we...
No, he was his only appearance in the films was in that awful Wolverine Origins movie. That's the only time we ever see Gambit in the films.
Okay, well, as much as I love Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights, I felt like I was watching, and the casting, now that I've seen this cartoon show, the casting was good, like in terms of like looks, but wasn't impressed. This Gambit kicks the bucket, allegedly. You're never really dead unless you're Gwen Stacy, and even she comes back as Spider-Gwen. So no one's really ever truly dead in the comics. I think the OG Gwen Stacy is like one of the only characters that stays dead, correct? And
for a long time,
Spider-Verse then they brought her back as Spider-Gwen. But
for
like,
a long time, it was Bucky.
Oh, my man.
Like, they didn't bring Bucky
There's
back.
another great anti-hero.
I don't think Winter Soldier was introduced as a comic until like the 80s, but Bucky was a character that got killed in like when the original runs of Captain America in like the 30s and 40s.
All right. Well, anyway.
There's your history lesson for the day.
Okay. Anyway, the little I saw of Gambit in this, I don't get it. Like, I didn't like his belly shirt. He's like, I want some beignets down at the bayou. And I'm like, okay, I get it. We get it. You're from that area. Like, you don't have to hit me over the head with it. I do like beignets. And then I finally started to be like, okay, I see the Gambit appeal when he was in the suit and they dressed him up and he had that romantic moment. And then he like dies, air quotes. I think they're going to find a way to bring him back. But I need to know why the fandom, I've forgotten how psychotic comic book people are and fanboys of stuff. I would say it rivals teenage girls. Like, I've never seen such hatred unless I'm on like the Vampire Diaries Reddit where everyone's fighting. Because I decided after we finished that I was going to get in Reddit, and let's just say the Gambit fans are ticked. And I'm like, yeah, I would be mad too, because I don't understand why he's so beloved. Because for me, I have not seen enough of him. And I'm going to say it right now. I liked Rogue and Magneto better. I did not know they had a little romance going on. And apparently there's a whole comic book where they like are married and have like a child. Oh, what? But ultimately I know from everything I've read, because Lord knows the nerds wanted to educate everyone on this on Reddit, is that she will ultimately be with Gambit. And she did kind of choose him in the end, right before he died, allegedly. And it's like a whole big thing. So I feel like right now this is like the Damon, Stefan, Elena OG love triangle, and the way people are behaving online are the same. Of course, I'm going with the Damon type, which is Magneto, but I wouldn't call Gambit a Stephanie person.
No, I wouldn't either.
So I just need to know, like, what makes him so good that you would always be like, Gambit's the best? Because for the longest time, because you and I saw the last X-Men The Last Stand in theaters together. We were dating. We saw that at that point. That's when we saw together. And I remember you were always like, I don't know why they won't put Gambit in this. He's my favorite. You would tell me that he was your favorite before Wolverine. What is so good about Gambit? Make your case.
I don't really, honestly, a lot of that is like residual memory from when
Okay.
I was a kid. So I don't really
And I'll let that pass.
honestly have a lot of the specifics of why, but he's a cool character. And
You're not alone.
He's a cool character. His powers are cool. He's dressed really awesome. He's got
he got
fun
the best line of the
trench coat.
series.
He got the best line of the
At the
series.
end.
Yeah. Like you
I
say he
wouldn't
went.
say his clothes and the belly shirt needs to go.
Well, that's I hadn't seen that before. I think they might have
I
put
like
that
his
in
little
for X-Men next
jacket,
time.
but get the belly shirt off there.
But all that stuff, and yeah, he goes out there at the end of that episode. I think that was the 5th episode. And if you're if you got to die in a series,
Mon chéri.
take it. Like take that. That's an
How
out.
does he say it? I did it more French. Like Mon chéri. I can't do the Creole.
So I don't know. I would, if you're going to go do a deep dive to try and find out.
Is that what
I'll
it is?
go
Like
too.
a Creole accent?
Yeah,
Is
like
that what you-
Louisiana, New Orleans,
Okay.
Creole kind of accent. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people on Reddit that are upset about that, they think the creator hates Gambit. When everybody else is like, Gambit got the best line of the series. We know at the end you see the card
Yeah.
when they meet Apocalypse. So I think Gambit will be back. And I, as a viewer, would like to know why I need to root for him and like him so much. Because right now, I did not know that Magneto, because my version of
Yeah.
Rogue is Anna Paquin.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were ever going to make Anna Paquin and Ian McKellen do a romantic scene. I just
No.
think that would have been weird because she was probably, like a teenager
Right. Yeah.
when these movies were filmed. And suddenly, they're like hooking up, and I'm like, whoa! And they hooked up. These people, they're hooking up in this show.
You didn't know that there was going to be tawdry romance in
It's
your
like
X-Men
the days
cartoon.
of our lives with X-Men. And then, of all the stupid crap that Daniel tells me, all the Star Trek tidbits, all the dumb stuff, we haven't seen the second Deadpool in years. I don't remember when that one came out. I know who Cable is. It would have been nice for you to have been like, by the way, that's Jean Grey and Scott Summers' son. That's relevant information I would have enjoyed. You told me that Scarlet Witch and the other guy are Magneto's kids,
They are, yes.
but you couldn't tell me that.
Did you notice in that poster at the end that had like all the X-Men on it, and some of them it said presumed dead, that there was a Scarlet Witch on there?
I did
and
notice
she
that.
was not. Didn't have anything over her face.
Love it.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, James Brolin, great casting for Cable, by the way.
Yes, he was.
And he also played Thanos.
Yep.
So he's been in 2.
I'm hoping they're going to make a joke about that in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming up this
I
summer.
did like how they made the joke about the black leather.
Yeah.
When they got their new costume, it was like, what do you want to wear? Black leather? Because that was a throwback, right?
That was a joke from the original first movie.
Yeah.
Where Wolverine's complaining about the black leather outfit, and Cyclops is like, would you rather have like yellow spandex?
And what'd you think about the Jean Grey, like, clone thing?
That was
was
crazy.
wild.
That was wild. Yeah. And it's very interesting that I think that what this show did really well was, I said it was very nostalgic for me, but it did not rest on that.
No.
Like it advanced the story of the X-Men. Like it didn't just sit there and rehash stuff or pop in people. And it did pop in people, because like you were talking about Steve Rogers there a little bit ago.
Yeah, we got to see Cap showed up. Iron Man showed up.
Dr. Doom was in there.
Spider-Man showed up. And then you said you saw Peter Parker and MJ like in their...
Yeah, in their street clothes. Yeah,
at one
so
point.
they threw those Easter eggs in there.
There
but
are rumors that Mystique was in a scene. It was like
Oh,
a
really?
blink and a miss it. That's what people are saying. Because she can...
Interesting.
She can do what Morph does, right?
Yes.
I do find it very odd that, like, I feel like a lot of the Ms. Mystique is so cool. So many iterations of, like, X-Men, they always include her. I think we got to see her in the second season, right?
I don't know. She's Nightcrawler's mother, isn't she? Canonically.
Yes.
So
Yes, and they did reference that.
And
He
they-
talked about
yeah.
his mother. I want to know how Storm got brand new hair in the show when she, like, had her, like, she lost
got her powers back.
She
I don't know.
changed. Everybody is hooking up with everybody in X-Men, huh, though?
It is. Yes,
I
they
learned
are.
that Scott and Emma Frost apparently at some point hook up. I'm like, what?
Yes, they are. So
I thought Emma liked Charles.
to bring this back
Didn't
around,
she like Charles in First Class?
maybe
Who knows?
the silly little X-Men comic or X-Men cartoon show that they dropped on Disney Plus.
Do you think that's why I like X-Men, all the tawdry romances?
Probably part of it. What are your final thoughts? Was it worth watching?
Yes. And when we got to those last, like, 3 or 4 episodes, we had to keep going because I had to see what happens. I really liked how they would change the credits.
Yeah.
Like, Nightcrawler shows up after the episode he shows up in, and then like when Magneto and Gambit are like presumed dead, they're not in there anymore. And then you see Charles Xavier's back. I thought that was cute. So if you're skipping credits, you're missing out on that.
You're wrong. If you skip the credits of X-Men, you're wrong.
And I do want to know, speaking of, we did talk about how Cap showed up. There was one scene where they're with the president and just Captain America and Iron Man are just standing there twiddling their thumbs, letting the X-Men do everything. Do you think this show, now that they put all these together and we know what Deadpool's going to do, we know what Spider-Man's already done, is there a chance, well, obviously we've seen Scarlet Witch with the Marvel people, that we're going to get X-Men together with like everybody? I would love that.
You know, I've had this...
It could be a mess or it could be awesome. Or it could be both.
Okay.
It could be a beautiful mess.
I am famous. We didn't have a podcast at the time. But I am famous for suggesting that I thought that what they were building towards with the MCU was going to be a mess.
And it wasn't.
And they figured it out. And
never misses.
They've been a little lost, I think, lately in the last, other than a few good, you know, obviously like you mentioned earlier, Guardians 3 was really excellent. Loki season 1 and 2 were excellent. I liked WandaVision even, and I liked the Multiverse of Madness movie, although now they've come up later and said that Scarlet Witch did die there at the end, and I think that's a problem. I think you got to bring Scarlet Witch back. I think she's too good of a character.
We even liked She-Hulk, even though it was silly. You know?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what they do. I think that the multiverse is how you do it, and instead of them all having been there the whole time, the X-Men are from their multiverse and everybody we know is from their own, because I think if you start saying it was all happening at the same time in the same place, that's when it starts to get really mucky, because it's like, okay, so why didn't the X-Men show up to New York when in the first Avengers movie?
Well, that was always one of my biggest criticisms of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then they did kind of find a way out of that when they got their universe split and they were like in space or something. And that was always one of our biggest criticisms, was like, where are the Avengers? Are these just like smaller cases? Because did Samuel L. Jackson, he showed up in like one episode, I think.
Yes, he did. He was there in the early seasons.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
I think he was there more than once. Yeah, he was in the early S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know they know how popular X-Men is, and after this cartoon show dropped, they really know how popular X-Men is. So I know they're going to work on it, but I am nervous, and I'm optimistic but nervous about how they'll handle it.
And then people are probably going to think I'm crazy because I have so much Magneto love, but I'm just like, I really do wonder. Like, because I think sometimes people don't put themselves in the positions of the characters, and I try to do that in anything that I read, watch movies. How do you all not think he's right? Like,
all right, okay.
Daniel, was Magneto right? Yes or no?
Up to a point.
Magneto was right.
Alrighty. Well, that out of the way, just a little light treason out of the way. And now we have finished season 3 of Abbott Elementary.
Yes. And it was a good season. It was adequate. I feel like my thoughts on Abbott Elementary are very similar to Ghosts. The strike really hurt some of these show of the week type of, that aren't like, what would I call them, cable shows?
Yeah, just your standard weekly network release.
Yeah, because it was a shortened season, and I think with a comedy, it's a little bit harder to do that. Like, I think with Janine working at the district, like that plot line, at first I was like, this plot line's going along, it's going on too long, and then it felt like when it was over, it was just over.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we still see her like district friends. I felt like we got less of like the side characters. Like, there's clearly some more stories to tell with like Jacob, and I think we can do that next season with a full season of episodes. And now that finally Janine and Gregory are presumably together, they've kissed before, but it seemed like this was like the actual kiss. Let's give it a go. So that was exciting, because I don't know about you, how much more of that could you have taken? That like back and forth, will they, won't they? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was getting frustrating.
Just get together or shut it down, either one. And I will applaud the show. I really thought they were bringing Manny on to be like a love triangle, and I thought they were going to have Janine date him. And I think they did address, like, he did ask her out after she left her job at the district. She said no. He's like, that's cool, we'll just be friends. And he still showed up at her party. that Wakanda forever.
Yeah, I think
and Ian Gregory. And I'm glad they didn't do that because I think so many of us thought they were going to go down that predictable route. And like, how many times have we seen that? Like, I didn't need another Karen Filippelli.
He was there, I think, more as he wasn't the direct threat to Gregory, but he was there as something to put in Gregory's mind as a threat.
And then a way to help Janine grow as a character too, because she did grow working at the district, and then I think she ultimately realized that Abbott Elementary was where she belonged. I liked the last episode with the party. It was a cute season. It was fun. I'm excited for season 4. It's a lighthearted comedy that I enjoy watching. I love Barbara. I really enjoy the show, but it felt like I feel the same way I felt about Ghost, just not quite enough.
Yeah, I have said multiple times I have had trouble connecting with this show.
Whereas I definitely connect with
I still think the janitor's my favorite. I really liked it when he found the principal's secret bathroom in the basement.
Yeah.
The jokes he dropped there were very good. Just, if all else fails, give me some poop jokes, some bathroom humor, and I'm there.
I think Ava is probably my favorite character. But I am excited to see. I bet they'll probably have Janine and Gregory doing like the secret dating at first because Ava randomly pulled out a rule about like teachers dating, which we had never heard about before. So I'll be interested to see how that goes down. I think it'd be smart just to keep them together for a little bit. Don't immediately break them up. That would be annoying to me as a viewer. There's so many other stories that we can do. Like, yes, Janine's the main character, but there's so many other different paths that we can take. And I just felt like they didn't have enough time to do that this season. So I'm excited for a full set of episodes for next year.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, here we are. We're watching Suits. We've finished season 5. We're on to season 6, a.k.a. Prison Mike.
Prison Mike. That's right. Our pal Mike Ross finally has been caught for being the big fraud that he is. I will say season 5 mid-season finale was probably the best of the finales or mid-season finales that Suits had done.
I agree. It was the culmination of all the seasons to that point where what happened is they finished up their storyline, and then right there at the end, everything's good, and then the feds show up to arrest Mike, and it's before the thing he's actually been doing illegally.
And you thought, because Mike had finally made the choice, he's like, I can't really go on with my life knowing that I'm a fraud. Like, it just doesn't, I'm never going to be able to feel good about myself, so I'm going to put in my resignation. You think things are good, and then they show up. And it was more one of those things where we're like, okay, we have to watch the next episode. So we have moved on at the end of season 5 too. Mike decides that he's going to go ahead and take the deal and go for 2 years for prison. And then, of course, we find out that he could have gotten out of it.
Yeah, the jury was going to find him innocent.
And I believe that the way they described it, because Harvey did something which I don't think you're supposed to do, track down like the leader of the jury people. Yeah. What's that called? Like the foreman or something. Yep. And he was like, yeah, we know he's a fraud. He's like, but we have to show that the legal system still works. And that lawyer committed, like we showed her, she did so many things you're not supposed to do as a lawyer. And he's like, we needed to show that you can't do that the system still stands. So that did make sense. The writing and like how they would have, even though they knew he was a fraud, how he would have gotten out of that. So he and Rachel ultimately don't end up getting married. I like the dress that she had on in their wedding that didn't happen. I actually liked it better than the dress that I saw her wear for her real wedding that I watched on TV to Prince Harry. I'm like, I've already seen you get married, Rachel Zane / Meghan Markle. So they didn't get married. I think that was the right choice, though, ultimately, for them to not get married because it felt like they were only rushing it because they knew he was going to prison. Her dad knows. Basically, everybody knows now. It's left the law firm in disarray. So enter season 6, and we've got
Prison
Mike. The Prison Mike era. And I'm about sick of it.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be done with Prison Mike. I'm ready for Harvey to get him out of there. So you said you had a lot of notes.
I have a lot
on the Prison Mike era.
They're into season 5 and season 6. I've got notes. The first one, call father-in-law dad. I think one point Mike is trying to call Robert Zane dad, and I'm like,
ew,
don't do
we
that.
didn't like that.
His name's Robert.
Yeah.
Also note, and this has really been something we've been calling out for a while now, but we've just only wrote it down this last time because it's just gotten so ridiculous. Nobody locks their computer screens at Pearson Spectre Lit.
They never lock them, and it drives us both crazy. Think of all the sensitive information they have on there.
Yeah.
Lock your computer screen. It's not hard.
No. Another computer-related one is, I'm not sure what kind of... I mean, we've met the IT guy at this firm before.
Yes.
But some people have Dells, some people have Macs, and if you've worked in corporate America for any amount of time, that's not how that works.
And why does Jessica have the Dell?
Yeah.
And then associates have Macs?
Unless you're bringing in your own stuff and they're allowing that, which I severely doubt they're allowing because, again, of the sensitivity of the information on those computers.
Or Daniel and I are huge losers and the only people that notice this.
That could also be the case. Here's a good one. This one's kind of ramping up to the end of season 5. But does holy water help aging?
So I forgot about this. So right before Mike decides... And this is the season 5 mid-season finale. So before Mike decides he's ultimately going to resign, we have a flashback that actually works for Mike because it's about Mike. They're not shoehorning him in to Harvey's flashback. So instead of casting actual teenagers and young people for Mike and Harvey in this, they're like, y'all just going to play yourselves. So they did give the Mike the emo hair.
That's my next note. Flashback emo Mike.
Yeah, with the emo hair. And then the priest at his Catholic school he went to, or the church they went to. And then in present day, the priest looks literally the same. And I believe it was me.
It was you.
I said, does holy water stop you from aging?
I don't think they're just back there taking shots of the holy water.
I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
But I'm and I guess sometimes when you're a kid, because his grandma looked the same in the flashbacks too, is that you remember people looking a certain way.
That is actually a very interesting way to think about it, because if the writers are suggesting that this flashback is through the eyes of the person, is essentially them thinking about things that have happened in the past, you're right. You don't really, the way memory works, if I think now today, if I think about a childhood memory, I see my mother as the last time I saw her today. Yeah. And so essentially she's an old lady, because she is an old lady now. That
makes sense.
So that kind of makes sense a little bit, I think. Yeah. All right, I have to kind of get myself prepared for this next note because I have to make sure I say it correctly. Because I'm afraid.
Okay, so at one point when they were talking about, I think it was just Mike and Rachel talking, right?
Yeah.
Was it even talking about prison yet, or just about their lives?
I think it was about prison.
And she's like, what are you scared of? And Mike just did the Sylvester Stallone, because I'm afraid. And Daniel and
it was a deadpan serious scene, and we just both cracked up laughing.
We had to pause the TV, and we're still laughing about it. It was, and the way they quote movies so much in this show, it's just the fact that
I feel like it leads to it. I feel okay. My final note, and again, I'm sorry everybody if you're all tired of hearing me say this. I have a travel sin.
Okay.
All right. The final scene, it was at the end of the last episode of season 5, where Mike
finale.
is going to take the deal, and Harvey finds out, and he takes off sprinting to catch Mike.
He finds out that Mike was going to be not guilty.
Yeah, because he's going to try and stop him. Harvey's going to fall on the sword for him.
Yeah.
And Rachel finds out, and she's on the way over there. So Harvey, you see this scene. It's this, to music scene. Harvey is sprinting through New York City in his suit, knocking people out of the way. He runs up the steps to get there instead because the elevator's taking too long. He gets in there just in time to find out that Mike has taken the deal, and there's nothing he can do about it. And Mike walks away, and as soon as Harvey turns around, there's Rachel. They both started from the same point.
We didn't see Rachel run.
And how did she get there? So almost it didn't make any sense to me. Travel sin. I'm sorry. I don't do it to be popular, but it's a travel sin.
I feel like we are ramping up to the ultimate exit because we know that Meghan Markle retires from acting in real life, is no longer going to be on the show. And in my opinion, once we can get Prison Mike out of there, they kind of brought this up a little bit at the end of season 5 and with Rachel now. You're going to have to stand in front of an ethics thing with the bar. Everyone's going to know that you were married to this, or are going to be married to this fraud. That's always going to be hanging over their heads if they stay in New York City. So I think that we are starting to put the seeds for the exit to come. I don't know. One of my biggest complaints right now about Suits is I feel almost, and they have temporarily held it off for a little bit, but season 5 and season 4 too, it was like whiplash with Harvey and Lewis. Like, one, and I get that's their thing. They are friends. They like each other. They respect each other, but they're always going to argue. Harvey's always going to get under Lewis's skin and vice versa. Lewis is always going to overreact. Whatever. I don't need it every 30 seconds.
No,
it's like whiplash. Like,
it got a bit much in season 5, and so they've slowed it down a little bit in season 6.
Is Sheila no more, by the way? Because Lewis is all about some architect woman now.
No, she's gone.
I think that
was the end. Like the Mike thing, that was it.
For her, because she was like, I thought maybe someday we'd be back together. But when she found out that Lewis knew.
Yeah, that's it.
Because she didn't think he knew the way he was. So when she's like, wait a minute, you knew? And he's like, you don't know him like I know him. So I guess we'll see. I'm excited. Suits it's still good. I agree with you. I'm ready for the prison Mike era to end. Then I don't know how you work Mike back in, but I'm tired of that.
Yeah, for season 6 for me so far, I have been much more interested in what's going on with
the
building the firm back up, and not really interested at all with the Mike in prison stuff.
And we have secrets we don't know about. Like, what did Hardman have on that Jack guy that now Jessica knows?
Yeah, is Hardman coming back? You know, he's still always out there licking
as a foil.
Licking his chops, ready to come back in.
We got to see Trisha Heffler again. She showed up. So we got to see a Metadel, or as they call him, Jeff, in the show. Suits is the show where all the actors from all the other shows show up on.
It is. You're right.
Y'all should watch Suits. You really should. Give it a go.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you this week. We know that last week we talked about New Girl. We haven't had a chance to watch any more episodes since we watched the pilot of season 1.
We've been too caught up with the Days of Our Lives, X-Men Edition, and Prison Mike.
That's correct. And so we did want to give a little forewarning here in the next couple weeks. We're going to be on vacation.
Yay.
And so next week we're going to have a special episode for you guys. And the week after that, we're going to have a supercut out of the Fallout show.
So if all you cared about was when we talked about Fallout.
All 2 episodes.
Then you can have it in one spot. And if you haven't watched Fallout yet, now you have time to catch up.
Yeah, go watch Fallout. It was good.
Before you watch it.
It's the last, go watch it before June hits, the waterfall of June hits, and there's just no time to watch anything.
I'll ask you one more question before we close this.
All right.
Of all the June stuff, what are you most excited for? You have to pick one. You can only pick one.
I think this is going to give away something for what I'm thinking about the best thing going, but I'm looking forward to the bear the most.
And I can't wrap my head around anything else with June until I get the back half of that Bridgerton season.
Yeah, I know. I figured that was the case.
Decision.
So, alrighty. Hey, everyone, have a good week, and thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope and Daniel on Instagram at We Watch TV Podcast. Drop us a line if you like the show, have a question, or a recommendation. You can find Hope on Twitter at Lil Runner and Daniel on Twitter at TheRealHoboDan. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.